Hello, everyone. Hi, how are you? I am 20 seconds ahead of time. Yes, hi. My name is Trishala Punjabi, and I am the senior subject matter expert here at GMAT. I don't know if you have seen my previous sessions. We just did a session on CR, and now we are back here with RC. So, just a quick, brief introduction about myself. I was in your shoes a couple of months ago. I took my GMAT, I think in like August, and I ended up scoring a V90 with a 715. And I'm here to teach you the exact process that I followed, especially in RC, to do that. So, let's get the session started. Just one thing, very, very important. In this session, I wanted to be extremely interactive. This is not a Netflix show. What we are going to be doing here is we're going to be extremely interactive, and I'm going to promise you that you're going to learn something new, but only if you interact actively. Okay. So I'm Trishna. I'm from Ahmedabad. Would love to know where you guys are, where you guys from, and what are your top struggles with RC? What are the things that you're struggling with the most in RC right now? Already waiting, exploring insights. Okay, great. Glad to see you here. Okay, I'll just take a while. We'll cover the struggles and then we'll go on to the session. And the purpose of this session is that, wherever you are, at any, whichever point you are at right now, you can reach 90 percentile. That is something that, if you follow whatever we are teaching, whatever we are dealing with today, you can actually go and reach that 90 percentile. Okay, all right. There is a bit of a lag, so I may not be able to. Okay, so exploring insights, you're saying that inference based on application based question, perfect. 78, 79, perfect. We will definitely deal with those. Inference is actually one of the most common question types that people get wrong in RC. So we're going to specifically deal with those. Fantastic. If any of y'all want to drop in the problems you're having anywhere throughout the session, please feel free to do so. Okay, so to start with, I want to start with this one thing, which is really, really important. In quant, you need to know certain formulas. In CR, you need to know the logical structure in the argument. But that is not the case in RC. You already have every single skill that you need in order to ace RC. You use those skills every day, in conversations and emails, all of that. You have the underlying logic in place. So RC could be one of your most scoring things if you do it right. All right. And I'm going to prove it to you. I'm not just saying it, I'm going to prove this to you. All right. So, what we're going to cover today is number one, primary purpose. What is the author doing type of questions? Inference questions, which is what is 100% true based on the passage, and detail. What does the passage actually say? So, most of the questions that are asked in RC, they fall under these three question types. That's what we're going to basically cover today. And we only have two tools. We're going to use these two tools on every single question type and they'll help you nail it. They're simple tools. One is the fifth grader test and second is the prosecutor test. Don't worry, we'll go into detail about what all of this entails. Okay? All right. So tell me the answer to this. What do you think is the answer to this? A, B, C, D. I'll read out the passage aloud. Bordering on the extreme, one definition of ethnocentrism considers the schismatic in group out group differentiation, in which internal cohesion, relative peace, cordiality, and devotion to the in group are correlated with the sense of hostility towards out groups, which are often perceived as subhuman and or an incorporation of evil. What is the primary purpose of this passage? Come on, drop in your answers. A, B, C, D. C. Okay, got it. I got one C. Anyone else? We got one more C. Okay. Would love to hear from a couple other people before I move on. I'm going to give you guys 10 seconds. Also, there's a lag, so if you answer, I may not be able to see it directly. I'm going to wait for 10 more seconds. And yeah, also drop your reasoning. If you think it is C, why is it C? If you think it's any other answer, why do you think it's any other answer? One more C. Okay, we seem to have a consensus. Okay, interesting. Mm-hmm. Got it. All right. So Let me ask you this question, okay? So, a professor tells you one extreme definition of water describes it as a toxic industrial chemical, a corrosive solvent that destroys metals, erodes mountains, and has killed more humans than any other substance on earth. This is what a professor is saying. What is the professor doing? Is the professor criticizing the use of water, evaluating different views, defining what water is, or telling you what one extreme definition says? Okay, I got 1D, 1C. Others, tell me. What is the professor doing? I'm going to wait for 10 more seconds. B, okay. D, D. So the majority of you think that it is D. And that kind of makes sense, right? Like, what is happening in the argument? Why not A? It is using like these words, right? Toxic chemical, destroys metal, killed more humans. But is the professor really criticizing water? The professor is not criticizing water, right? The professor presented one definition, and that definition includes criticism of water. Let us look at why not C. And I think there are a couple of you that did choose C. The professor said one extreme definition of water describes it as. If the professor was defining what water is, the professor would define it directly. The professor would say water is defined as blah, 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 blah. But the professor is not doing that. This is a very, very, very crucial thing I want you guys to keep in mind. It is not the professor's own definition. The professor is obviously a rational person. The professor is really exactly Yasmin, spot on. The professor is not going to, be like, oh, water is like this bad thing that kills people. The professor is a rational person, but the professor is presenting some other people's views. Got it? So, if the professor were defining water, he would present his own views. But when he's presenting the definition, he's giving other people's views. Is that clear? Is that clear to everybody so far? Now let us go back. So you guys did three things. I think most of you who got D, you guys did these three things automatically. Even when there were harsh words that were used, toxic, corrosive, destroyed, killed, you did not think the professor was criticizing. He was just reporting. You guys saw that when it was said that one extreme definition defines it as, it was not the professor's own definition. Right, presenting someone's definition is not defining it yourself. And Yasmin, you presented this very beautifully, that you do not know what the professor thinks about water. You really don't know what the professor's opinion is. He just presented one extreme definition, and that's all you know. Now, keep these points in mind and go back and do this question. Do you guys want to reattempt this question? What is the primary purpose of this passage based on everything we discussed so far? It's not really a question. Do you guys want to reattempt? I want you guys to reattempt. Okay, we got 1C. What about the others? Do you want to reattempt this question? What do you think the answer is now, after we discussed? I'm going to wait for 10 more seconds and then I'm going to share what the actual answer is. Isn't it the exact same thing as we did in the water passage? What is happening in the water passage? One extreme definition of water describes it as. What is happening in the ethnocentrism passage? One extreme definition of ethnocentrism considers as. So whatever the definition presented is, that is not the professor's definition. Hence, the professor is not defining water. Similarly, whatever the definition of ethnocentrism was, that was not the author's definition. Presenting someone else's definition does not mean defining it yourself. I can present five different definitions of water, right? But that is not me defining water. As an author, if I am saying that something is defined as A, B, C, D, E, that is me defining. If I am presenting someone else's definition, that is not me defining it. I'm just presenting an extreme view, or I'm just presenting one particular sort of view. It is not necessarily my own view. And this is a very, very important thing to distinguish between something which is your own view versus something which is another person's view just presented by the author. Right. So, just as in the water example, it was an extreme view presented. Similarly, in this example, the extreme definition of ethnocentrism is presented, and this will be a little bit more clear to you once we do this. So the answer here is actually D. The answer here is the author is basically telling you what one definition says about ethnocentrism. So if we basically put the entire passage in a simpler word, what does it say? It says that one definition of ethnocentrism says it's when you love your group and you think that outsiders are disgusting and evil. In this case, you are not defining it. You are telling what one definition says about ethnocentrism. And the distinction between them is really small, but it is very, very crucial. Okay? This will be a little bit more clear once we do a couple more examples. All right. So, this method that we use, how do we essentially come to this answer? This method that we use is called the fifth grader test. Okay. So, whenever you have like a very, very complicated passage, and I'm pretty sure, like, that does happen to me, that sometimes when you get a really complicated passage, you get very intimidated. So, what to do in that case is that you employ the fifth grader test. What you do is you simply take the entire thing, you put it into different chunks, and you tell yourself what the meaning of those chunks is. All right. For example, this says bordering on the extreme, one definition of ethnocentrism considers. Take a pause. What does it say? It is one definition, not the author's definition. As Yasmin put it, everything after this is not what the author believes. We don't know what the author thinks, right? Similar to the professor example. Then, second, the schismatic in group out group differentiation, in which internal cohesion, relative peace, cordiality, devotion to the in group. Again, this sounds so, like so confusing, so intimidating. Simply use the fifth grader test. Simply convert this into a format that you would explain your fifth grader cousin in, right? What does it say? You love the people in your group. That is it. That is what all those big scary words mean. Okay. Then it says are co-related with. Now, whenever listen, whenever you read the word correlated, you have to be extra careful. What does correlated mean? It means it's something that exists together. It means that A and B, they come together. It means that A and B, there is no causative relationship. It is not that A causes B or B causes A. Both of them just happen together. And that's a really important distinction for answer choices. All right. Then what is this? A sense of hostility towards outgroups which are often perceived as subhuman and an incorporation of evil. What does this entire thing say? That you think that outsiders are disgusting and evil. You think that they are bad. That is it. And again, the entire thing, we are just describing what the extreme definition says, not the author's personal view. So, what did we do in this entire fifth grader test? We took the entire sentence, we took the entire passage, we put it into chunks, right? We put it into different chunks, and we basically we converted those chunks into format that a fifth grader can understand. And what this allows us to do, or what this forces us to do rather, is it forces us to simplify the meaning of the passage in our own head so that we don't get confused when we have different difficult answer choices coming in. Okay. So now okay, I'll take a question before that. I guess the wording is confusing the answer choice options because it can be interpreted as passage defines and not really the author defines. Really good objection, Yasmin. So whenever we are talking about the passage, or whenever we're talking about something which is given, which is the passage's view, that is by default the author's view. And it's very, very important to distinguish that. So whenever any kind of view is there, right, you have to first differentiate. Is this what the author thinks, or is it what somebody else thinks? Just do this one thing and your accuracy will skyrocket. Just differentiate whose view is it. Okay, that is extremely important to do. And passage means author. All right, so now we are going to go for the prosecutor's test. So, I hope you guys understood the fifth grader test correctly. Do you guys have any doubts here? Any doubts in the fifth grader test? Perfect, awesome. Let me know if you have any doubts at any point. I will be happy to stop and explain. Now we are going to do the prosecutor test. I don't know if you guys have seen any law series or something like Suits or something like that, or like been exposed to actual lawyer stuff, right? But if you were to see any such series, what normally happens is that there is somebody who is the defendant, somebody who's the accused, and you have a prosecutor, and you have somebody who's like the defendant lawyer. So what the prosecutor does, whenever they are cross questioning someone who they feel is guilty, they don't look at overall, okay, what is this person saying, right? They listen to that person's testimony. They listen to every single word that the guilty person is saying. And whenever they feel that one word, like for example, they said just this one word or like this one point, they hold on to that point, because that point would be enough to kind of make them confess, or make the prosecutor win the case. So whatever, every single word that comes out of the guilty person, the accused person's mouth, that is extremely important. They look at each word from a magnifying glass. So we are supposed to do the same thing in answer choices. So that is called the prosecutor's test. Okay, what we are supposed to do is that we look at each and every single word with a magnifying glass. If it does not correlate with the passage, that word is out. Okay, so let us take that example here. What does option A says? What does option A say? Option A says to criticize a concept that encourages hostility. So when you say criticize, like if you look at the water example, would you say that the professor is criticizing water? We can't say that, right? He called it toxic, corrosive kills, but he was not presenting his own view. He was just presenting somebody else's view. You don't know what the professor's stance on water is. So you can't say that the professor is criticizing water. Then it says encourages hostility. The passage is very, very clear about that. The passage says correlated with. The passage never says that ethnocentrism encourages hostility. All right, correlation is not causation. So even one flaw, if you find one flaw, the answer is eliminated. In this case, there are two flaws that eliminate the answer. Now let's look at option B. Option B says to evaluate the concept by enlisting various features. So when you are doing evaluation, and this is a very important thing, not just for this particular question, but overall, because evaluation is asked a lot. When you say evaluation, that time you're basically examining multiple sides of the argument. But this entire passage is just giving one definition. If the professor had given three definitions of water, toxic chemical, chemistry one, life giving one, that would be evaluation, not this one. Okay. Now to option C, which is something that you guys got very confused in. To define the concept which leads to hostility. When you present a definition, that is not called defining. Okay. Another thing, it said that to define the concept which leads to hostility. Again, leads to. What does leads to mean? Leads to means causes. That ethnocentrism causes hostility. If we look back at the passage, right? If we look back at whatever is happening in the passage, anywhere is it written that there is a causation of hostility? What does it say? Bordering on the extreme, one definition of ethnocentrism, blah, 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 correlated with a sense of hostility. It is never, ever, ever said that ethnocentrism causes hostility. That is one more reason by which option C is out. So when you look at the prosecutor test, you're not just supposed to see overall, like, okay, this is what makes sense. You are supposed to look at each and every single word. Leads to, correlated with, out. Okay, does that make sense? Exploring insights, Yasmin, to whoever thought that C was the answer. Is it clear to you guys, or do you still have a doubt? Now, if you look at option D, it says to introduce the concept and present a view on it. So, what does it do? It says introduce. The passage brings up ethnocentrism, right? And it presents a view. It presented one perspective on that, the fact that it was an extreme thing, right? So, what did we learn so far? In purpose, in like, main point questions or purpose questions, the verb is very, very important. Criticize is different from evaluate, is different from define, is different from introduce. So the first thing that you're supposed to do when you look at a main point question or a primary purpose question is that you look at what exactly is being done. Okay, what is the passage doing? All right, now I want you to tell me this. Look at this particular question and let me know when you're done reading. And please feel free to stop me if you have any doubts. Okay. Now A, B, C, D. Which one of this? Which one of these is this one? Tell me which of these is it? A, B, C, D. I've pasted the question here in comments. I got 1D, 1B so far. Rest of you? Come on, tell me quickly. Which one is it? I'll show this again. Ethnocentrism, a concept often viewed through a negative lens due to its association with xenophobia, is multifaceted and varies in expression. At one extreme, it manifests in severe in-group out-group differentiation. On the other, it also fosters a strong sense of community. Tell me quickly, is it criticizing? Is it evaluating? Is it defining? Or is it introducing? I'm going to wait for 10 more seconds. Yasmin, Sachin, both of you are correct. It is B. It is evaluating the concept of ethnocentrism while enlisting its various features. So, again, what did we discuss? What is evaluation? Evaluation is something where we look at the pros and cons. We look at the multiple aspects of it. We look at multiple different viewpoints on one particular concept. What does it say? Ethnocentrism is multifaceted. On one extreme, it manifests as blah 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 blah. On the other hand, it fosters blah 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 blah. So what are you saying? What are you seeing here? We are seeing the two different parts. We are seeing the two different perspectives on one thing, which is ethnocentrism, right? That is called evaluation. So that is what is happening in this particular thing. All right, so we have one doubt here. Doesn't that also come under presenting the view? Okay, that is a fantastic question. It says to introduce the concept of ethnocentrism by presenting a view on it. What does a view mean? It means one view, right? One view. Here, what is happening? We are presenting multiple views. Exactly, Yasmin. We are presenting multiple views. We are presenting it manifests as silver in group, out group. differentiation, then it fosters strong sense of community. So we are not just presenting one view, we are presenting both the different views. Okay? All right. Why is it not C? C says it's to define the concept. In this entire thing, we are not defining the concept anywhere, right? We are just saying, giving the pros and cons. Awesome. All right. Now, let us do this question. Tell me, do I need to even give the options? Hmm. These are the options. Okay, we have gotten one C so far. What about the rest of you? I'm going to read out the question again. Ethnocentrism, a concept central to understanding social group dynamics, can be defined as a schismatic in group out group differentiation. This differentiation creates a clear sense of hierarchy. Within this framework, internal cohesion, relative peace, solidarity, loyalty, devotion are correlated with the state of hostility towards outgroups. Okay, we have gotten two C's so far. I'm going to wait for 10 more seconds and then I'm going to reveal. Okay, we got on three C's. Perfect. All of you are correct. This is to define the concept of ethnocentrism, which leads to hierarchy among social groups. Right. So, what is happening? This is a very, very clear definition. Here, there is no ambiguity. There is nothing that, oh, you know what, is this the author's view? Is the author presenting a view? Is it somebody else's view? It's extremely clear that this is what the author thinks. The author is not presenting a view, the author is himself or herself defining ethnocentrism. Right. It says ethnocentrism, a concept central to understanding social group dynamics, can be defined as a schismatic in group or group differentiation. The other thing, and also like a very important piece, what does it say? This differentiation creates a clear sense of hierarchy. Right. What does this mean? It creates that, which means it causes that. Right. It causes that entire, leads to hierarchy among the social groups. That is also perfectly matching C. Awesome. Great job, guys. All right. Tell me this one. Same options as before. Hmm. Cool. I've gotten one A so far. What about the rest of you? The harmful nature of ethnocentrism becomes glaringly apparent when we examine its most extreme definition. The misguided worldview fosters a dangerous, schismatic in group out group differentiation, promoting an unjustifiable hierarchy. I think it's clear at this point of time, right? I think I've gotten one more A. It is a clear criticism, right? You could possibly not be more clear in your criticism than this. It says the harmful nature becomes apparent when we examine its most extreme effort. The misguided worldview, dangerously schismatic. It does at a terrible cost. There is no ambiguity about what the author thinks. The author is very, very, very clearly criticizing in this case, right? So, can you appreciate the difference? In the first passage, what was happening? In the very, very first passage, bordering on the extreme, one definition of ethnocentrism. What was that? That was introducing a concept. That was not defining, that was presenting somebody else's view. After that, in the second passage that we discussed, what was happening? In the second passage, we were evaluating it. We were discussing the different pros and cons of the passage. What happens in one extreme? What happens in the other extreme? In the third passage, what was happening? This was the definition. This was, it can be defined as blah, 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 blah. This was the author's own view, and hence it was the definition. Right. In the fourth passage, what was happening? It was a clear criticism, right? The harmful nature, glaringly apparent, dangerous, charismatic, blah, 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 blah. Got it? So this is how you deal with a main purpose question. First, it's very, very important to understand what is happening. Is it criticism, evaluation, introduction, definition? What exactly is happening? And second thing which we learned is the prosecutor test, is that we look at each and every single word. Is it leads to hierarchy? Are various features being enlisted? Is it encouraging hostility? Right. And whenever one word does not match up to what is happening in the passage, that entire thing is out. Now, before we move on to the next thing, any doubts, you guys? I want to hear, do you guys have any doubts? And if there's anything that you learned so far, I wanted to put that in the comment box. I'm going to wait for 10 more seconds and then we're going to move to the next passage. And please present your doubts or comments or comments. What did you learn so far? We majorly learned about, one is the fifth grader test, where we take a large chunk of passage, we break it into points, we break it into chunks, and we share each chunk and we synthesize it in a way that our fifth grader little cousin can understand that. Okay, all right. All right, T. Now we will move to the next passage. Let me know once you're done reading and I will drop the answer choices. Start dropping your answer choices. Can you see the entire passage in the comments? Start dropping your answer choices, guys. Don't worry about being wrong. It's actually amazing if you're wrong. That way you can actually figure out exactly where you went wrong, and then you can figure out, what do you need to learn. I'm going to wait for 30 more seconds, okay? Okay, we have gotten 1D so far. Anybody else? 1B. Okay. A. All right. A, B, D. Ooh, this one seems to be a tricky one. Anybody else? Okay. All right. Please drop your reasoning also. Why do you think it's A? Why do you think it's B? Why do you think it's D? I think so. You guys at least have the consensus that C and D are not the answer. Is that so? Okay. Now let's drop this question. Look at this question, okay? Some people in my office think Rahul is the best coder. Some people think Priya is the best coder. Some people think they're equally good, and Rahul sits at the third floor corner desk. What can we say for sure? Can we say that Rahul is the best coder, Priya is the best coder, they're equally good, or that Rahul sits at the third floor corner desk? Quickly, what can we say for sure without a single shed of doubt, single modicum of doubt? Okay, D. All right, I've gotten one D so far. One more D. Okay, okay. So I think you guys are pretty unanimous here, right? It's a very clear D because again, that's whatever these people are saying that okay, some people think Rahul is the best, some people think Priya is the best, some people think they're good. Again, these are people's opinions. They are not facts. Very good, vast ninja. Awesome. These are all people's opinions. The only thing that we know for sure, that we know for a fact, is that he sits at the third floor corner desk. That is something which is actual reality, right? In time, distance, and form. Okay. Now, let us, I think like Vastrinja put it really beautifully that D is a fact, other everything else is an opinion. So you separated opinion from other people's fact from facts, and you picked the fact. Okay. Now I want to foray over here. Does the author believe that ethnocentrism is connected to xenophobia? Tell me, just yes or no. Does the author believe that ethnocentrism is connected to xenophobia? Okay, Yasmin, you think it's a no? What about the others? And why do you think it's a no? Okay, Yasmin, I think it's a yes, because why not Y3I? You think it's, I don't know what A is in this scenario. Two people think it's a no, one person thinks it's a yes. Okay. If we look at this sentence, right, if we apply the fifth grader test in this sentence, ethnocentrism and its canonical variants are deemed to be intimately connected to xenophobia. Don't worry, let's go. I'm going to come to this. Don't worry at all. I'm going to come to this point. But let's focus here. In fifth grader language, ethnocentrism and its canonical variants are deemed to be intimately connected. In fifth grader test, does it mean that they are connected or that some people think they are connected? What does deemed to be mean? A or B? Quickly, tell me. A or B? I got one B. What about the rest of you? One more B. Okay. 10 more seconds. I want to give a few people chance to think about it. One more B. Great. Brilliant. So I think you guys are pretty clear on this, right? That deemed to be means that some people think they are connected. It is some people's opinion. It is not a fact. They are not connected. Just that some people think that they are connected. Right? Deemed to be intimately sounds strong, right? Like, oh, they're very, very connected. That sounds strong, but it is still an opinion. It is still deemed. Okay, so the correct fifth grader version of sentence one is not ethnocentrism and xenophobia are connected. Because what does that mean? That treats it as a fact. It is that some people think that ethnocentrism and xenophobia are connected. That is treated like an opinion. Similarly to the office equivalent, some people think Rahul is the best coder. Does that mean he is the best coder? No, right? So if we look at the entire now that we have this in mind, okay, we have this entire thing in mind that some people think that X and E are connected. Can you try this question again? Do you all want to give this question a go again? Just 10 more seconds. Give it a go again before I explain everything. Let me just quickly pull up the question text again. And just a very, very quick kind of advice on inference. Inference is something that the author believes is 100% true. It's a bit of a hint. Keep this in mind, and I want you to solve it again. And again, don't worry about it being wrong. I'm going to give you 30 more seconds. Okay. Two people think it's E. All right, let's go stands on B. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. So let us look at the simplified version of the passage. Okay, what does this passage mean? And let's look at the fifth grader test here. Okay, it says some people think that ethnocentrism and xenophobia are connected. Why? Because it said that ethnocentrism are deemed to be intimately connected, and you guys told me that that means that some people think they're connected, that the answer to this is B. Hence here full passage is some people think that E and X are connected. Xenophobia means you dislike strangers and everything they represent. That is a fact. That is a definition that has been given in the passage. Some researchers think that two sides are the same coin, and other researchers disagree. This is the simplified version of the entire passage. So, what can be inferred from this? Is it that ethnocentrism and xenophobia are the same thing? Ethnocentrism is closely connected, ethnocentrism and xenophobia are not connected. The fact that xenophobia can cause ethnocentrism or xenophobia involves disliking strangers. The only thing that can be inferred here is the only fact, something that you know for sure from the argument, which is the definition of xenophobia. So the answer to this is actually E. And if you look at it, isn't it the exact same logic as the office example? Some people think Rahul is the best, some people think Ian next, some people think Priya is the best, some researchers think they're same coin, some people think they're equal, other researchers disagree. The only fact here was that Rahul sits at third row corner desk. The only fact in xenophobia means that xenophobia means you dislike strangers. Three opinions, one fact. Same structure in both, the exact same logic. Does that make sense? Is it clear why the answer is E? And I saw that a couple of you did change your answers from whichever they were to E. So that is absolutely fantastic. So the rule of inference, and especially to let's go for 7579 and Vast Ninja, the rule of inference is that it is something that is 100% true. Not 90%, not something which is like, okay, you know what, there's a good chance of that being true. Inference means 100% true. And I want to deal with a doubt that was asked at some point of time. Yes. You said that for inference questions, you don't need to consider the author's stance, only the statement of fact. So, inference is something which is what the author thinks is 100% true. So, what will the author think is 100% true is two things. The author will think his own opinion. The author's own opinion is definitely 100% true, or a fact that is stated by the author. That is something which is 100% true, right? So those two are absolutely valid inferences. If something is deemed to be or considered to be, or some people think, that is never going to be an inference, because that is someone's judgment. It is not something which is like the established truth. So if I were to give an example, okay, this is like a very extreme example, but imagine if I am a reporter. Okay, I am like a nice person. Okay, imagine I'm a nice person. I am in Nazi Germany. All right, and there, if I'm saying that, okay, these people, define Nazism as something which is good, I obviously don't believe that, right? It is not my opinion, but I'm presenting an opinion. So if I am saying that, okay, some people thought that Nazism is good, that is quite obviously not my opinion. It does not make sense that it is my opinion, right? But I am presenting it. So inference is something which the author believes. And you know for a fact that I don't believe that Nazism is good. So you can't say that. Does that make sense? to Let's Go 45759, Vast Ninja, and others. Why the answer to this is E. Why can't deemed be considered as a valid inference? Is this clear? Okay. If you have any doubts, please feel free to post it in the chat. Awesome. Great. All right. So if we look at the prosecutor's test on options A and B, xenophobia, ethnocentrism, different facets of the same concept, canonical variants are closely connected. In both of those, they are again attributed opinions. They're other people's opinions, right? They're not the author's own opinion. Then, if we look at C and D, right? Like we look at, all right, sure, let's go. I will wait a bit. C says that they are not connected, right? So others disagree. It is like the opposite opinion, but it's still an opinion. You can't say anything about this. Like in the entire argument, if we look at the entire argument, we cannot. What is the author's opinion? The author doesn't have any opinion. The author is just presenting three opinions of different people and one fact. Same as our Rahul example, where there were three different opinions and there was one fact. Right? So when you don't have the author's own opinion, that time the only valid inference is a fact. Great. I hope that this is clear to everybody. All right. Okay. If you have any doubts, tell me, and if tell me what you have learned so far before we move ahead. What have you learned so far? We discussed the fifth grader test, we discussed the prosecutor test, we discussed the author's opinion versus fact. In both those questions, we discussed what the author's opinion is versus fact. And actually, that is the most common reason that people get questions wrong, is that they cannot distinguish what the author thinks. So when you are doing the fifth grader test, when you're practicing the fifth grader test, when you're looking at one sentence, when you're breaking it down in chunks, and then when you are telling it to a fifth grader, that kind of forces you to kind of ask. And you got to do that whenever you're doing it. Whose opinion is it? All right. Great. And honestly, like a lot of people do think that RC is like an inborn skill. You can only do it if you're a very good reader, if you're a very fast reader. You need to basically read newspapers, and you need to do like all that kinds of things in order to be good at RC. But you don't need to do that. If we look at the Rahul example, right? All of you got the right answer. You had the logic, right? It's not that you don't know how to read. It's not that you don't know how to break down. All you need to do is just follow the process. If you follow the process, you will get there. And we have multiple examples. We have people who, went from 19th to 93rd percentile, who went from like 14th to, I don't know, like 91st percentile, right? And there are examples. So GMAT follows like this particular process that can get anybody to a 90 percentile plus level. And yeah, like it's very important to do that. Okay, any other questions before we move on to the next passage? Now we are done with the drills. I've told you guys exactly what to do. Now we will go and we will practice this full-fledged on an actual GMAT RC passage. Okay. Please do this particular passage. I'm going to give you 4 minutes to read this, and then I'll present the questions. And I want you guys to answer the questions. Tell me, what is the answer to this? I hope you can see the question in the comments, the passage in the comments. Okay. Yasmin, you think it is C. All right. What about others? I'm going to wait for 20 more seconds before I move on to the next question. D. Okay, Sachin. All right. So we got one C and one D so far for question one. And guys, whenever just putting the comments, just put Q1 dash C or D or something like that, so that because we have bunch of questions. E. Okay, so we have C, D, and E for question one. Okay, let's go. I want you to. Uh, I want you to pick one. Pick one between B and D. All right. Now, question two. And when you reply, just do it two dash whichever option you think it is. Don't do that. Let's go 47579. Don't do that. Don't spectate. Even if you think, even if you need to guess, do it. Even if you need to take your time, do it. Just whichever one you think the best, go for it. But try your best to get to the answer, because even if each and every single one of your answer is wrong, it doesn't matter. But you went through a certain process in your head to get to that answer, and when you look at the actual process, you're going to see, okay, where you made a mistake, and you're going to form those connections in your brain. And to you and to everybody who's watching this video, um, actually actively solve this question. Even if it seems difficult, even if you know it's wrong, doesn't matter, just try to solve it. Okay. Question 2C. Okay. Okay, Yasmin, what about the rest of you? What do you think it is? Again, I'm going to wait for 20 more seconds. I'm going to wait until I get at least two replies before we move ahead. Okay. A. All right, Manan. Manan Cha Maria. You guys have such complicated names on your YouTube. Okay. So we got one A and one C here. All right. 10 more seconds and we'll move on to the next one. Okay. Question two, you also think it's A? All right, Vast Ninja. All right. Question three, we got one C also. So we got two C's and two A in question two. Let's look at question three. Okay. We got one E so far. Two E's. Anyone else? Final 10 seconds. Okay, we got one D and one A. Okay. C, A. All right. So this is all over the place. We got a couple of A's, couple of E's, couple of C's. Okay. All right. Let's go to question 4. We just have two final questions and then we'll begin with the question discussion. The author mentions patients' ages primarily in order to. Okay. 20 seconds before we move on to the next question. We have two people selecting D in this particular question. Okay, what the rest of you think? 3, 4. You guys seem to be unanimous. Okay. Final 10 seconds. We got 1A. All right. Okay. Now, this one. This one usually has the lowest accuracy of all. So think about it, think deeply about it, and then go for this. We got 1B so far. I'm going to give you guys a little bit more time on this one. 30 seconds. B or D. You gotta select Western. Which one is it? Okay. So we have B or D, C. Final 20 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so this question seems to have confused you guys a lot. You think it's B, I've got a couple of B, couple of C's, couple of D's. Okay, all right. What did you think of this entire passage and solving these questions? Did you think it was easy, difficult, medium? Did you guys use the fifth grader technique, the prosecutor test? Could you understand? It's confusing. Okay, Yasmin. Thank you for being fully honest. What about the rest of you? Could you solve this passage? Or was it like confusing to you guys as well? So, first thing that we will do in this particular passage is we will completely simplify it. Okay, it was challenging. Yeah, this is a little bit of a slightly like challenging passage. So yeah, perfect. Awesome. So what we're gonna do is that we're gonna take this difficult passage and we are gonna first simplify it. All right, we are gonna use the fifth grader test, and I want you to watch along with me. And when you are practicing on your own, I want you to follow the exact same principles that we are following right now. Got it, Vast Ninja. Perfect. Thank you so much, guys, for like being so honest. Okay. Now let us look at every single thing. Let's look at this entire thing from line to line. Okay. F and M. Can I draw here? No, I cannot. Okay. F and M, Fraser and Mosteller, assert that medical research could be improved by a move towards larger, simpler clinical trials of medical treatments. Let's take a pause here. Okay, what is this entire thing trying to say? If you were to simplify it, what would you say? And after every single time when I ask you this question, I want you to think, and whenever possible, I want you to put the answer in the chat. Okay, what is this statement trying to say? That right now, let us say medical research is at a certain level. If you do two things, okay, if you make the trials, number one, larger, and number two, simpler, medical research can be improved. One question here: when I say improved, do I mean that the accuracy will improve? Yes or no? Tell me. When I say improved, can I say that the accuracy will improve? Can I say that they will be more accurate? Just tell me yes or no, guys, quickly. Does the first line say that FNM's whatever will make it more accurate? Okay, very good, Yasmin. Yeah, very good. Let's go. Exploring insights. Right now, we're just looking at doing the passage analysis, right? Then we'll go to the questions. Not really. So, actually, here we're just talking about the first line. It's so weird to call you guys names from your YouTube names. Okay, we are just, yeah, great. So we are just talking about the first line. So what is the first line saying? It is just saying that medical research could be improved. Now, improvement can mean anything. When you improve, you can improve by cutting costs, you can improve by increasing accuracy, you can improve by, I don't know, like reducing red tape, you can improve by, putting new innovations. Multiple things you can do, right? Improvement can mean a lot of things, but here it doesn't necessarily mean that accuracy will improve. Okay, so what is the first line saying? That F and M are saying that if you make it number one large, number two simple, it could be improved. All right, now what is the second line? Currently, researchers collect far more background information on patients than is strictly required for their trials. Pause. Let's not look at the entire paragraph, right? Let's just pause here. What does this mean? When you say the word currently, it means that the way that things are done right now. Okay. And one thing that really helps me, if you have seen any of my CR sessions, you will know that I employ this technique all the time, which is using maths. Maths really helps in visualizing this entire thing. And to all of you who thought that the passage was very complicated. Why are we using the fifth grade technique? Why are we doing this? We're doing this so that we can visualize everything, so that we take this huge chunk of walls of text and we form a picture in our own mind, a picture so clear that we can say it in our own words what it means. The only way to kind of understand if you have completely understood what something means is if you can explain it to somebody else in a way that is crystal clear. Okay, all right, so back here. So, what are we doing right now? We're taking a pause. What does this mean? Currently, researchers collect far more background information than is strictly required. That, let us say, if X is the amount of information that is strictly required, like, it could be that someone's age and, like, let's say, someone's gender, these two things are strictly required. Right now, researchers collect 2x. Right. For example, they collect the age, they collect the gender, they collect the address, they collect the economic status, which is not required, but they still collect it. Is that clear what this line means? Currently collect far more than is strictly required. And we took a pause here because we want to make sure that we are understanding every single thing. And yeah, one more thing, because I'm sure this question will be in some of your minds, that won't it take too much time? If I end up doing this entire thing, won't it take way too much time? I have to get through the entire passage, I have to get through CR, I have to get through so much. How will I manage? Now the thing is that when we are doing this in practice, when we are cutting down the entire thing into chunks of easily digestible morsels, right? So when you're having food, like let's say there's a big burrito, you won't completely eat that big burrito. You won't be able to. You will take small bites, and then you will end up eating that burrito, right? That's the exact same thing we're doing here. We are taking a small bite, we are figuring out what that means, we are chewing, we are swallowing, and then we are taking the next bite. Okay, so here it says that uh, so this technique is called strategic pausing. All right, so and yeah, so when you're practicing, that time you're supposed to use this technique so that your brain gets trained in how do I take complex information and how do I synthesize to make it simpler. So when you keep doing it again and again and again and again on the actual GMAT, when you have extremely complicated passage like this, you can solve it. Why? Because your brain is trained to take extremely complicated information and simplify it into easily digestible chunks. All right, back to the question. Now it says that they collect far more information than is required. So if X is required, they collect 2X, substantially more than hospitals collect. What does this mean? That hospitals are also collecting X. X is required, hospitals are collecting X, researchers are collecting 2X, thereby escalating costs of data collection, storage, and analysis. What does thereby mean? Tell me quickly in this scenario. What does thereby mean? I'm going to wait for 10 seconds before I give the answer. All right. Very good. Fantastic. Thereby means leading to. Thereby signifies that there is a cause and effect relationship. We earlier discussed correlated, right? We discussed what that means. This is not correlated. This is not that two things are happening together. We don't know if one is the cause of the other. Thereby clearly means, yes, very good. Exploring insights, Anil Kumar, Vast Ninja, fantastic. Thereby clearly means cause. Because we are collecting 2x, when x is required, the cost is increasing. Right? It's a clear cause and effect. Why are costs increasing? Because we are collecting 2x information, right? Because we are sitting and we are collecting that extra information that, okay, economics is this much, family background is this, blah, 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 blah. That's not really required, right? And that is increasing cost. They are also specific. What costs are being increased? Of data collection, data storage, and data analysis. All right, three costs are increasing. Okay, so up until now, what did we discuss? Look at the passage analysis on the right. Per FNM, medical research can be improved. Why? By two things: larger, simpler trials. Currently, what's happening? Too much data collected. The data collected is more than hospital data, and that is increasing costs. Simple. Now we have the next line. Although limiting information collection. Take a pause right now. All right. whenever you look at the word although, or whenever you read the word although in a passage, that should be a flag to you. All right. So the way the entire passage goes is like, there is one particular point being made. All right. Everything is going towards that point. It's like Google Maps. You have A to B. You have your destination A to B. Although, whenever the word although comes, it means that there's a turning point. All right. A to B is going on, but there is like one pit stop you have to make. You have to make one turn. That is what although means. So whenever you read the word although, yes, very good. Whenever you read the contrasting point, yeah. Whenever you read the word although, you have to make in mind, okay, this is some point, some consideration that is a little bit away from the main point of the passage. Okay. Now, what does it say? Although limiting information could increase the risk that researchers will overlook facts relevant to a study. Pause again. What does this mean? This means that, okay, let's say like right now researchers are collecting what? They are collecting age, they are collecting gender, they are collecting economics, and they are collecting number of members in the family. Okay, four things. Now, the entire point is what are FNM saying? Right? That right now, because so much information is collected, you don't need all that much information, right? You should take less information. But then there is one consideration made by the argument themselves, that instead of four things, if we collect two things, we could increase the risk that researchers will overlook fact relevant to a study. As an example, let us say tuberculosis is something which is more common in like larger families. As an example, okay, don't quote me on this. Let's say tuberculosis is something which is more common in larger families. And because you are not collecting the family size, you are not getting that information on tuberculosis, which is a fact that is relevant to a study. So, in the U turn, what did the argument do? The argument took a consideration that, okay, if you limit information collection, if you don't collect these two things, you might overlook fact relevant to a study. Right. And usually, whenever an argument puts a U turn, the argument itself puts it back on track. Right. Whenever the argument says that although blah, 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 but this, that is something which usually follows. Okay. So it basically raises a consideration. Okay, what if this happens? It answers its own question. Okay. And we are back on track. Although limiting information collection could increase the risk that researchers will overlook facts relevant to a study, Fraser and Mosteller contend that such risk, never entirely eliminable from research, would still be small in most cases. Okay, question to you guys. If I were to put this mathematically, how should I put it? Tell me. I want to know who gets this, because honestly, this is the key to question number 5. I'm giving you guys a big hint already. Tell me, what does this mean mathematically? Fraser and Mosteller contend that such risk, never entirely eliminable from research, would still be small in most studies. Quickly, tell me. How do I put this in the 5th grader test? What would you, how will you tell this to a 5th grader? If you can't do it mathematically, tell me normally. Such risk is negligible. Very good. Anil Kumar. What else? Anyone else wants to try? What if I say that risk always greater than 0? If risk is y, 2x is equal to y, x is equal to y. Yasmin, x and y was about the information collected, not about the risk. Right? It's very important to keep those points separate. Here we are just talking about the risk. What does this mean? Can we say that risk is always greater than 0? All right. Let us say that there is some fact that is relevant to a study. Amount of, I don't know, like amount of hair I have. Doesn't make any sense. But yeah, whether I'm bald or not is relevant to a study, right? Yeah. Oh, yes, Yasmin. Yes, very, very true, very true. Right. So nobody, in no study, people are going to be like, okay, how much hair does she have? Right. No one is going to say that, or like something as ridiculous as like the size of my eyes. No one is going to say that, right? But what if like that is fact important to a study? So, what are FNM saying here? When they say never entirely eliminable from research, they are saying that no matter what research you do, no matter whether it is cancer research or like orthopedic research or like, ophthalmic research or biochemical research, no matter, even if you collect 100 facts, even if you collect 1000 facts, in no way, shape, or form, in no universe possible can you eliminate that risk. It is absolutely, completely impossible to eliminate that risk. Yes, very good, Vast Ninja. Very good, because why not? Let's go. Perfect. Very good, guys. Right. So they are saying that no matter what you do, this risk is always going to be there. But this is very important. It is still going to be small in most studies. Right. But still, what does most mean? Whenever, oh, this is very, very important. Not in this particular case, but in general, this is super important. How do you put most mathematically? 10 seconds before I give the answer. Most is always more than 50%. Okay, whenever you read the word most, be it CR, be it RC, be it anything, in your brain it should be okay to something which is more than 50%, which means like in a good majority of the research, it could be anything. It could be 90, it could be 100, it could be like, I don't know, like 30, sorry, not 30, my bad, 60, but more than 50. Okay, so what is happening is that they are saying that in most studies that risk is still small. So if we look at the entire statement, what did the argument do? The argument put a U-turn. It gave a not a U-turn, like a turn, like one consideration that, oh, if we collect x instead of 2x, what if we overlook a relevant fact? And then FNM's retort to that argument is that, that risk is always going to be there, but it is going to be small in most studies. Only in research on entirely new treatments are new and unexpected variables likely to arise. This is simple enough that only if we have a very, very new treatment, that time we'll have a new variable. Otherwise, if the treatment is old, we are going to be fine. Okay, so this is the entire understanding of passage 1. What is, if I were to reiterate it, what is happening per FNM? Look at the passage analysis on the right hand side. Per FNM, medical research can improve by larger, simpler trials. Currently, what is the problem? We require X data, 2X is being collected. That is much more than hospitals collect. That is increasing the cost. Because of that, then there's a negative of collecting less data. There is a risk of losing facts, but that risk is small, right? And it cannot be, it can completely not be removed, and only in very, very specific research we will have like more of such risk. Vast Ninja, wouldn't risk increase if I follow the method? Yeah, it is saying that, right? It could increase the risk. There is some risk that will increase, but there are two things. One is that risk is always there. It will never be, even in the current treatment there is some risk. It is not zero. It is not that currently everything is, oh, perfect, zero risk. Currently, if there is 1% risk, maybe there will be 5% risk, right? So this means that risk would still be small. Okay, otherwise, like, exactly, very good, Yasmin. Perfect, very nicely put, Yasmin. Right, only if it is a completely new research, then you will have like unexpected variables. Got this, guys? Got this passage? Wait, okay. So what is this entire passage doing is that it is explaining the benefits of a simpler trial, right? That is what the entire passage is doing. Now we move on to the next passage. Is everyone clear on this passage, by the way? Is everybody crystal clear on this passage? What is happening in this passage? How we figured out what's happening? Why is it explaining the benefits of a simpler trial? Is this clear? Yes, no, maybe so. Tell me. I'm assuming it's clear to you guys. Yes, risk like death is completely inevitable. Perfect. Okay, Fraser and Mosteller propose not only that researchers limit data collection on individual patients, but also that researchers enroll more patients in a clinical trial. Thereby, just pause. What are they saying here? So earlier in the first line, what did we discuss? That how can medical research be improved? By making them larger and by making them simpler. In this entire thing, what did we discuss? That if we make them simpler, which is that if we reduce the amount of data that we collect, they could be better. Better how? Less costly. Okay. Now, what are we saying? That not only should we limit the data collection on individual patients, but we should enroll more patients, right? So, like right now, for example, if we are enrolling 10 patients, we should enroll 20 patients. Clear? Thereby, again, what is thereby? Thereby is a cause and effect indicator, right? So, what is it saying? Thereby obtaining a more representative sample of the total population with the disease under study. What does this mean? This means that what does a representative sample mean? It's like, okay, let us say that you are doing a sample. So basically, they want more group of people in data to counter the lack of data. I'm really happy you brought up this point, Vast Ninja, because we don't know if they're doing it to counter the data, counter the lack of data, right? That is an inference that you added. They never did that. They never said that we should increase size of trial because we are collecting less data. They never established a cause and effect relationship. And I'm so glad you brought this point forward, because it's really important that if a cause and effect relationship is not stated, you can't infer that, right? If a cause and effect relationship is stated, it is going to be very clear. There are going to be words like thereby, since, hence, therefore, that are going to signify that there is a cause and effect relationship, right? Here, there is no cause and effect relationship between these two things. Okay, back here. Okay, it says thereby obtaining a more representative sample of the total population with the disease under study. So it's like, what does a more representative sample mean? It's like, let us say in the actual world, we have 50 men and 50 women who get the disease. Okay. And let's say we are doing the research on only men. We're doing it on only however many, as many number of men, only men. So we can't take those findings and we can apply it to both men and women, right? In order to apply the findings on women, we need to have done the research on women as well. Make sense? Is this point clear to everybody? What does a more representative sample mean? It should represent, right? If we are, it's like, I cannot do a paracetamol study on adults and then give it to an infant or a baby, right? Because if I want to give it to an infant or a baby, I need to have tested it on an infant or a baby. Got it? So what are they saying? That if you enroll more number of people, you can get a more representative sample of the total population. All right. So they, in the first para, they discussed making the trial simpler, which is basically collecting X information instead of 2X. And here it's like increasing the number of patients. If you're having 10 patients, making it 20. Why? So that they are more representative. All right. Now, what does it say? Often researchers restrict study participation to patients who have no ailments beside those being studied. So what does it say is that, let's say, for example, there's a trial on diabetes. And if I have diabetes, heart disease, cancer, they're not going to take me. They're only going to take someone who has only diabetes. Okay. And this is something which is normally done. It says often researchers restrict. All right. A treatment judged successful under these ideal conditions can then be evaluated under normal conditions. Tell me what this means. I want you guys to tell me. What does we have done a lot of fifth grader tests and all these sentences so far. Tell me what this means to a fifth grader. I'm going to wait for 20 seconds. See, think back to what evaluation means. Let us say in the current way in which we don't have a representative sample, let's say we are taking like 10 people, only men, can you directly go ahead and then give the treatment to women or children? Can you directly do that? According to this, not according to our thinking, according to this statement. You can't directly do that, right? What is it saying? Can then be evaluated. Evaluated means that you will not directly go and release it. You are going to evaluate it again. You're going to see the pros and cons again. All right. You're going to do another study with it. Right? You're going to, it's not like you're past the exam. Nice, awesome, chill now. Yes, you still have to give one more evaluation, one more exam. So let us say if the treatment is successful under these ideal conditions, it's like step 1, done. Now you have to go to step 2, which is evaluation under normal condition, and then step 3, which is going to be release. Okay, so what is this saying? That after step 1, you can't directly release it. You have to wait for one more step, which is evaluation under normal conditions, which is testing. Is this clear to all of you? So if we look at this entire para, what is happening is that essentially we should, not only are we collecting less data, but we are increasing the size. Okay, we are increasing the number of people and we are getting a more representative sample. It is not that instead of like we had 10 men, we are going to get 20 men. We're not going to do that. We had 10 men, now we will get 3 women, maybe we'll get 2 children, right? So that is going to be a more representative sample of the disease under study. Then we are talking about the entire thing about what is happening right now. Currently, we are having only patients with one disease in trial. Like if I'm doing a thing on diabetes, I'm going to take patients of only diabetes. Okay, and after step 1 is passed, I'm still going to need a step 2. I can't jump to a step 3 and release. Okay, that is what is happening here. So here, what are we doing? We are giving the benefits of a larger trial, right? I mean, we kind of pointing out that, okay, what is wrong in whatever is happening right now, and we are giving a benefit of a larger trial. Now, let's go to the third and last para. Broadening the range of trial participants, FNM suggests, would enable researchers to evaluate a treatment's efficacy for diverse patients under various conditions and evaluate its effectiveness for different patient subgroups. Looks very complicated. Let's pause it. Okay. What does it say? That if we increase the range, right? What does range mean? Not only are we increasing from 10 to 20, but we are getting more representation. We're getting men, we're getting women, we're getting children, we're getting people with not just one disease, but 2, 3 diseases. Okay. What will that do? So now we'll be able to see how good the treatment is for different patients. Okay, in different conditions. Like let's say if someone has only diabetes versus like diabetes plus hypertension, what is the effectiveness, right? So we're basically saying how effective that entire treatment is, not just for different patients, but within the same patient for in different subgroups. Like let's say only in diabetes, right? Someone with diabetes type 1 versus type 2, diabetes with age 40 versus diabetes with age 70, right? That is what this entire thing means. So the entire evaluation is going to be essentially much better. For example, the value of a treatment may vary according to the patient's stage of the disease. Then it is giving example. Example 1 is that let's say if you have stage 1 cancer and you're giving a drug, it's different. It's going to be different in stage 1 versus in stage 3. And because you're getting people from stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, you can see how the treatment is different according to different stages of disease. And 2 is that patients' ages may also affect the treatment's efficacy, right? That's giving one more consideration. So now giving basically the entire thing is talking about how will increasing the size of a trial help. It will basically judge the efficacy of different patient subgroups and 2 examples. 1 according to the stage of the disease and 2 according to the age. Okay, so this was the entire passage summary. So what did we do? We took the entire passage, we looked at each and every single line, and I know this is going to be time consuming, I'm telling it to you guys again, but the more you do it and the more effectively you do it, the more you try to put it in your own words, the more you will get trained in the art of understanding the passage. And the better you understand the passage, the more your accuracy is going to be. And let's, if you were to summarize this, the entire proposal is to make medical research better. How? 2 things: simpler trial, larger trial. Simpler, you collect less data, not that much of a risk, it's going to reduce the cost, and we talked about what happens currently. Larger trial, why? You'll obtain a representative sample, you'll basically give more information about efficacy of treatment with 2 examples, and right now the current scenario is explained. Is this clear? Guys, I want to hear from you. I've been talking a lot. Now I want to hear from you guys. Is this clear to you? What is happening? The entire passage? Yes, no, maybe. Is there some doubt? A lot of you said the passage was complicated. Is this simpler to you guys now? Yes? Yasmin, yes? Awesome. Perfect, perfect. Fantastic. So now, if we look at the questions again. Okay, question 1, the passage is primarily concerned with, or what is the main point of the passage? Think about it. Way simpler? Fantastic. I am really, really happy. Think about it. What is the point of the passage? Why has this passage been written? Think about it. Tell me in your own words before I even answer the question. Think about it. What did we do in the passage? We looked at the benefits of a larger trial. We looked at the benefits of a simpler trial. We looked at what is happening right now and how FNM will make it better. So what is it happening? What is happening? Proposal to make medical research better, benefits of simpler trial, benefits of larger trial, right? So it's a 2-pronged proposal to improve medical research that is being explained. That is the entire purpose of this. So if we go back to this, if we go back to question 1 analysis, okay, you're saying to find a more efficient way to get a more accurate data while being more cost efficient. Technically, yeah, absolutely. You want to do 2 things. Oh, yeah. So I'm not sure that, let's go. I'm not sure about this specifically. Is the main point to address the issues, or the main point is improvement? Is it talking about, how the current thing is bad? Or is it mainly talking about how we can make it better? Think about it. And let me look at the answer choices. If we look at this, identifying 2 practices in medical research that may affect the accuracy of clinical trials. Okay, perfect, Yasmin. Fantastic. Really good, Vasnindra. Accuracy. Where have we mentioned accuracy? Right? Accuracy is only mentioned in the second part. It's not in the entire thing. We don't know if it will make them more accurate. Right? We said improvement. Improvement could be in cost, improvement could be in accuracy, improvement could be in anything. Right? So because of the word accuracy, applying the prosecutor test, this one, A, is a no. Okay. B says describing aspects that tend to drive up costs. Only a part of first para is doing this, not the entire thing. Now, tell me before I go ahead, if you guys had to choose between C and D, what would you choose right now? Tell me, C or D? Okay, Yasmin, you think it's a D. What about the rest of you? D, D. I don't think it's a C. Okay. Majority of you think it's a D, and it's absolutely correct. The answer to this is D. Now, Vastanj, I'd just like to explain this one thing, okay? Let us say if I'm saying this, okay? There are a lot of potholes where I live. These potholes suck, they make it very unbearable to drive. I absolutely cannot drive in case of these potholes. What am I doing? I am talking about the shortcomings of potholes. Versus, let's say, if I say this, I think we should make roads out of plastic instead of out of gravel. I think it will allow us to recycle the plastic, and we will not have potholes. It will reduce the potholes, and it will make the entire thing better. What is the purpose of that? That is basically giving changes to the way roads are normally built. So the point of it is not about like, oh, what, potholes suck. The point is that, oh, how we can make it better. It is not just criticism that, oh, what, they are bad. It is like, how can we make it better? It is reframing of that, right? So the passage is not concerned with like, oh, what, current way of doing research sucks. Passage is how we can make it better. Okay, so what is C doing? C is basically talking about the pothole thing. We are not doing pros and cons of current practices. We are focused on describing changes to the way in which clinical trials are normally conducted. Okay, can anyone tell me why E is wrong? Why is E wrong? I'm going to wait for 10 seconds before I give the spoiler and reveal the answer. There are multiple reasons why E is wrong, but one very important reason is very good. Fantastic. Very good, Yasmin. It says how such trials are likely to change. We don't know if they're likely to change. We are just talking about, oh, what, these are two people who think that they know everything about research, and they're given this one proposal. We don't know if the scientific community is going to accept this proposal, right? We don't know if they will actually change or not, if they're likely to change or not. Fantastic. Great. Is this question clear to everybody? The primary purpose of doing this? And I'm so happy that so many of you ended up selecting D. I'm so super happy. Okay, now let us do question 2. Which of the following can be inferred from the passage about a study of the category of patients referred to in the lines? Often researchers restrict study participation to patients who have no ailments besides those being studied. So, whenever you look at any kind of a detailed question, right, so the first thing you do is you go back to the passage and you read the lines which are surrounding that. Okay, not just those lines, but the lines surrounding that. So what is happening in this passage? This is the entire part of the passage. Often researchers restrict study participation to patients who have no ailments beside those being studied. A treatment judged successful under those conditions can then be evaluated under normal conditions, right? And then if you broaden the range, you can evaluate the efficacy under different conditions, and you're given 2 examples. Okay, so what is being told here is that the results of the study are very limiting. If you have to go through a 2-step verification process before you can even put it out in the world, then it is definitely limiting, right? You can't directly go and put it out in the world. Number one. Number two, they're only covering ideal condition. Why? Because it is said that a treatment judged successful under those ideal condition will then be seen in normal condition. Okay, so these are the 2 things which are being talked about. Now I want you guys to try this question again. Try question 2 again, and then we will get back to the explanation. Yeah, try this again. Based on what we what we discussed so far. Just to be clear, often researchers restrict study participation. This is talking about the current way of doing trials. Right now, what is happening is that they are only, let's say that, I have 3 diseases, they're not taking me. They're only taking somebody who has 1 disease. What can be inferred out of this? Okay, Yasmin, you think it's A. What about the rest of you? I'm going to wait for 20 seconds. Okay. Yasmin, you are completely correct. The answer is A, that its findings might have limited applicability. Very good, Vastindra. Very good, Sachin. Fantastic. That's exactly what is being told, right? That if you are, you have to, even if you wait, sorry, let me reword this. Yeah, so let's say that if someone is judged successful who has only diabetes, you can't directly go and release. You have to test again. So the applicability is limited, which is exactly what A says, that its findings might have limited applicability. I am so proud of you guys. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, that is the correct one. Second one says that it is prohibitively expensive. We did not mention costs anywhere. It would be the best way to sample. We are literally saying the opposite in the argument. We are saying that it is a bad way to sample. It says it will allow researchers to limit information collection. We never discussed that. That was never a part of this argument. That was there initially, right? Then it says its findings would be more accurate if it concerned progressive versus non-progressive. We haven't been told about that, right? We were not said that this is for progressive, this is for non-progressive. The only thing which is perfectly fitting this is A, that its findings might have limited applicability. Beautiful. All right, let's do this one again. It can be inferred from the passage that a study limited to patients like those mentioned in the lines would have which of the following advantages over the kind of study proposed by FNM. So what is happening in this question is that the entire argument is about, okay, how FNM is arguably much better than the normal way of doing it, but it's not that the normal way is completely useless, right? There will be one or two good things about that normal way, right? It doesn't totally suck. So we are basically told to find out that why, in which particular domain is the normal way better than the one proposed by FNM. So that is the filter that we are going to use. Okay, now if we go back again, what is the advantage of the current way? Let us look here, right? A treatment judged unsuccessful under the ideal condition would then be evaluated. So normally we limit the participants to patients who have only one ailment. That is the ideal condition. Proposed way is to include more participants. Okay, so what are the advantages here? The advantage, is it A, that it would yield more data and findings would be more accurate? Again, accuracy is not discussed. Is it B, it would cost less? Again, costs are not discussed. C, it would limit the number of variables researchers would consider. That is exactly what has been mentioned in the passage. That why is it that you are taking one? Right? Because when you are evaluating something which is judged successful there, then will be done in a normal way. Right? So it basically makes it simpler for the researchers to basically find out that, okay, is the treatment good or not? All right, that is what C says. D is essentially opposite. If you pick D, you got confused. What is this question talking about? Restriction of study participant patient to patients of no ailments. That is basically the current way of doing things. D is basically the FNM's way of doing things, right? And what does E? I think a couple of people selected E also initially. E says that it would enable researchers to assess the value of experimental treatment. Nowhere have we talked about experimental treatments. Okay, that if you have picked, then you have added something from your own brain, which you're not supposed to do. This could be a normal treatment also. This could be like a simple evaluation of a normal diabetes medicine. It can't be said that it's an experimental treatment. Got it? And an average patient, when you talk about average patient, that means a normal patient, somebody who does not have any ailments, right? Here we are talking about people who have just one problem, diabetes. That's not an average patient. Okay? All right. I hope that this has been clear to you guys. Let's do question number 4. The author mentions patients' ages primarily in order to, I think most of you did get this correct. But if we look at this, right, what is happening? If we look at it, ages is given as an example, right? It says that the author mentions patients' ages in context of mentioning those things that could affect the efficacy and how the methodology would help to address the same. So basically, the age thing is given as an example so that we can say how FNM is so much better. FNM will be better because example ages. Okay, so if we look at the options here, the author mentions patients' ages too. Is it A, identify the most critical variable? Some of you guys selected A initially when I had asked this. It is not the most critical variable. It has only been said that patients' ages is an example. Is it the most critical variable? Absolutely not. We don't know that. Cast the doubt on advisability. Opposite. Indicate why progressive diseases. Okay, if you guys selected C, progressive diseases is a separate example. Both of them are not together. It is like the entire thing is there. Why is it good? Example 1, example 2, right? So that is a separate example. Illustrate a point. I think most of you got this about the value of enrolling a wide range of patients. This is what it is. Like, this is an example. Okay? Substantiate an argument. It is the exact opposite. Okay, now before we go on to question number 5, what did you learn so far? Is it clear so far? Are you able to appreciate the answers? Are you able to get the different answers? Is it clear? Yes, no, maybe? Then we will go on to question 5. Tell me, do you guys have any doubts up until this point? Amazing. Fantastic. I am so happy, guys. And that's the thing. I did not do anything which was, um, like too difficult. All we did was we just looked at every single thing with a lot of patience, line by line. Absolutely, Utkarsh. It's completely fine, Yasmin. When you are studying, okay, very embarrassing thing about myself. Um, I'm just going to put it so that very embarrassing thing about myself. When I first took my GMAT mock, I ended up scoring a 1 percentile in quant, like an actual 1 percentile, and I thought that I was good at quant. I used to score pretty well when I was in 10th grade. So I was like, damn, what will I do? How will I take the GMAT? How will I ever get into an MBA college? But again, it's just a starting point, right? I went from one and I went to like a Q82. I mean, it could have been better, but still, you know, I could get to that particular level. So even if your initial responses did not correspond, Yasmin, what I was noticing is that after the explanation thing, all the questions you were getting right. No, so you do have, like, once the entire thing is clearer, you are absolutely able to do it. So that is absolutely brilliant. So never judge yourself from just your starting point. Vast and initial answers or just guesses, absolutely no worries at all. Like, I hope that after the explanation it was clear to you, Vast Ninja, and you did not have to guess. Utkarsh, we can take it now. We have like a 2-minute breather before we start the question number 5. I don't mind taking it right now. I need to breathe. I've been talking so much. Wait. I want you guys. Hmm. Yes. So, Yasmin, the way to basically do it, that even translate the answer choices into a fifth grader test. Put it into chunks. That's what GMAT loves to do. They'll have like all these complicated information, which is honestly like, it's not that. difficult. If you put it, it's like it's very simple. And honestly, when you look at the answer at a time, it does seem like, very intimidating. But if you take it like one word at a time, it's like they. Okay, do they? Oh, yes, of course, it's they. Expend resources. Okay, are they expending resources on the storage of information? Okay, are they storing information likely to be relevant? Yeah, Anil, this one is an actual GMAT passage. The earlier ones, the practice drills, they were only the practice. Thank you, Neil. It makes it so much easier. Utkarsh, don't worry at all. I also am a strategy mentor at eGMAT. So just email me. Here I go. Ask for me, and I will help you out. So, okay, but I would just like to give, you know, I would just like to give this to everybody. I mean, again, it's a bit off topic, but before we start question five is a very difficult and loaded question. So the explanation of it will take a little bit of time, but this is to everybody. If you are feeling stuck in CR, yes, Yasmin, it will be. But do come back and watch this. I think this question five is going to be very useful because this is one which has like the lowest accuracy. Okay, so Utkarsh, what you need to do, and this is to everybody, okay, everyone who is stuck in CR, it is literally like, honestly, it is not that hard. I'll tell you exactly what to do. First of all, go and watch the videos. Every CR question has a process. All right. Like, for example, in assumption, you have a process that you basically find the conclusion, you falsify the conclusion. I will list down the process at the end of this video. I'll also put it down back in RC. What you do is make a Google Sheets, okay, and every part of the process, label it in the rows. Label it as conclusion, falsification scenario, blah, 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 whatever is a part of the process. And then start with medium level questions and start with assumption. Okay, do it topic wise. Do assumption, do medium level questions, and just basically figure out what the conclusion is. Write the conclusion, write the falsification scenario, write the assumption, write down every single thing. Okay, once you do it, what that will do is, number one, that will help you apply the process in real time. A lot of times we get the answer wrong because we are not applying the process. This will actually allow you to properly apply it. And second is that if a mentor takes a look at it, they will be able to see which part of your process is broken. Do you have a problem with conclusion? Do you have a problem with falsification? So when we have a look at that, we'll be able to actually tell you that this is what you need to work on. Then instead of just doing like mindless drills of like multiple mixed topic questions timed, you know exactly what you need to work on. Okay, so yeah, a little bit of a segue here, but yeah, Utkarsh, reach out to me at support@egmat, and then I can help you out with that. Ask for me. Okay. All right. Now we are going to go for question number 5. This is going to be our last question. Does anyone have any other doubts? Or we can directly get started. Okay. All right. Question 5. Based on what we have discussed so far, does anybody want to try attempting this question again? Does anyone want to try attempting this question again? According to the passage, which of the following describes the result of the way in which researchers generally conduct clinical trials? You still think option B? Okay, Neil. Oh, it's so nice saying Neil instead of Vaseline. So many syllables. You still think it's option B? Okay. What about others? I know Yasmin is out now. What about the rest of you? Okay. So let us look at the way that generally clinical trials are conducted. Okay. Generally, what is happening? What have we learned so far in what happens generally? It says currently they collect far more information than is strictly required. So if X is required, they collect 2X. That is one thing which we know generally happens. Okay. What else happens generally? What else happens generally? Then it's like, generally they take like, a small number of people, right? Let's say like, they take like 10 people instead of like 20. All right, that is all what is happening generally. Now, generally, if they are taking like 2x instead of x, what is that causing? What is the thereby there? It is causing an increase in cost, right? We talked about it, remember? If let's say x is required, they are collecting 2x. What is that causing? Thereby cost is increasing. Okay, that is one problem of what generally happens. Two is saying that generally you have like, let's say only 10 patients, right? And only 10 patients of, let's say, only men, or like, only one category of people. What is that causing? That is causing that, okay, extra layer of evaluation. That is the only thing that's causing, right? There's the two things which the entire argument tells us. Yasmin, you think it's A? Okay, very good. Yeah. So if we look at that, that is what is generally happening. So in question number 5, this is to you, Neil. They sometimes compromise the accuracy of their findings by collecting and analyzing more information than is strictly required. So this is basically saying, if I like, put it in a very simple way, that if 2x is required, they are collecting x. This causes a reduction in accuracy. That is what option number B says. Has it been given that it causes a reduction in accuracy? Have we discussed a reduction in accuracy? Neil and the rest of you, in the first paragraph, did we discuss that? We did not, right? Perfect. Don't worry, we'll go on that also. But we did not discuss that they compromise the accuracy of their findings, right? That is something that we added on our own. What did we discuss? What does that cause if they collect and analyze more information than is necessary? It causes an increase in cost, right? All right, now to you. Let's go for 47579. Can you tell me your real name as well? I think I should have asked you guys that long ago. Would have saved me a lot of syllables. C says they avoid the risk of overlooking variables that might affect their findings, even though doing so raises their research costs. Let us go back to the passage. Okay, what does this passage say? Fraser and Mosteller contend that such risk, never entirely eliminable from research, would still be small in most cases. What did we mean by that mathematically? What did we mean by that? We meant that risk is greater than 0. Always. Remember? Let's go. What did we say? Very good. Very good, Yasmin. What did we say? We said that no matter what, in every single alternate universe, no matter if you collect 1,000 data points, 100,000 data points, 1,000,000 data points, some risk is always going to be there, right? That is what the passage says. Now let us go and look at what the option says. Option is saying that they avoid the risk of overlooking variables. What does avoid mean mathematically? Let's go and the rest of you. What does avoid mean mathematically? Who can tell me? 10 seconds. Beautiful. Fantastic. Avoid means risk is equal to 0. What did we discuss in the passage? Risk is always greater than 0. What does this option say? Risk is equal to 0. That is why this option is wrong. They do not avoid the risk, right? They reduce the risk, absolutely reduce the risk. But do they avoid the risk? Absolutely not. So this is how you use the prosecutor test. Because of this one word, this option is wrong. And that is how things are going to be in RC and say, oh, this was such an important thing. In RC and CR, you sometimes, when you get confused between two options, you will think that, okay, you know what, This option is more correct, the other option is less correct. This entire thing is a fallacy. There is no such thing as more correct or less correct. Out of 5 options, there's going to be 4 wrong answers, where you will look at every single word, you will compare it with the passage, and you will be like, this goes against what the passage is saying. You will find that out. And when you find that out, you will be like, okay, you know what, this is not the answer. And some other option is my answer. Right? So C is out because of that particular reason. Okay. So if we look at option A, right? What is option A saying? They expend resources on the storage of information likely to be irrelevant to the study that they are conducting. That is exactly what we are taught, right? That if let us say that if you need x, you are collecting 2x. So the difference, that additional x, is likely to be irrelevant. And look at the very, very smart way in which that they have used likely to be. This passage has not said that it is irrelevant. It has said likely to be, which still gives us some, room, because it's not absolute, it's a safe option to pick. Right? It's likely to be irrelevant. And what is it saying? That why is it that you should not collect 2x instead of x? Because collecting 2x is increasing the cost of storage and all of those things. Right? So it is increasing cost, which means cost, money is a resource. So they are expending resource, they are spending money on storage of information, which is likely to be irrelevant to the study that they are conducting. That is exactly what we have inferred as well, and that is what this option says. Why not B? Accuracy not discussed. Why not C? When you say avoid, risk is equal to 0, right? Why not D and E? Because they attempt to analyze too much information, they overlook facts. That was completely not discussed at all. In fact, it's the opposite, that if you analyze less information, you could overlook facts, right? In order to approximate the conditions, they base their information collection on those used by hospitals. E is also completely against the argument, because in the passage that we have already mentioned, that hospitals also collect X. Researchers are collecting 2X, right? Significantly more than hospitals collect. Let's look at that line. Substantially more than hospitals collect, right? Hence, it is not E. I hope that this has been clear to everybody. And perfect. We are done with this question. All right, tell me, any doubts? Any doubts, guys? I could have done this only. Okay, no doubts. What did you learn in this session? What did you learn? Oh, also, if you like the session, please press the like button. And if you want to practice more, by the way, we are almost done with the session. If you want to practice more, you can go to GMAT. We have like detailed modules on reading comprehension. We have like lots and lots of practice exercises as well that you can use. Intricate. Do you want me to explain it again? Let's go 4, 5, 7, 5, 6, 9, 7, 9. Sorry. So it's like, okay, if I tell you that, simply I tell you that I'm going to avoid eating dessert, right? I'm going to a party and I'm going to avoid eating dessert at the party. Okay. And in the passage, it is said that I ate a little bit of dessert in the party, right? There is like, I always eat a dessert in the party. Like, it's not possible for me to not eat dessert in the party. So I can't say that I avoided eating the dessert, right? Because when you avoid it, you're basically saying that something is equal to 0. That is what avoid means. I hope this is clear now. Let's go. Okay. All right. So what did we learn? Number one, what I could see in you guys is that after the question explanation, after we went through every single line with a fine tooth comb, Most of you got most of the questions correct, and that was absolutely brilliant, right? What, nothing changed, right? All we did was just we read it piece by piece, bite by bite. We did not inhale the entire burrito. We took small chunks of it. We took a small chunk, we swallowed it, we took another bite, we swallowed it, then we took another bite, and then we swallowed it, right? That is what we did, and that made the entire thing much easier to do. Fantastic, Anil. Really, really good summation of the entire session. Breaking down passage, eliminating wrong answers, difference between author and other people's opinion. Right? So this is what you're supposed to do. Read it slowly for comprehension. The accuracy you have is directly correlated to the amount of comprehension you have to the passage. The level of understanding you have of the passage. Okay? So yes, do strategic pausing, summarize. What are the two main tests that we learned? First is the fifth grader test. Okay, take any sentence or even a part of the sentence and be like, how would I explain it to a fifth grader? Nothing, no fancy stuff at all, just the simplest possible way. Okay, schismatic in-group outgroup differentiation, love the people in your group. Deemed to be intimately connected, some people think they're connected. Escalating cost of data storage collection analysis makes it expensive. Okay, very, very important. If the simplified word changes the meaning, that's wrong. You need to make sure that it should be simple and meaning should not be changed. Okay, very important. Second, what did we learn? That is the prosecutor's test. You have to, get your inner Harvey Specter, so alive. So what you got to do is, can I prove this is true using only the evidence? Each and every single line with a fine tooth comb, a magnifying glass. Awesome. Let's go. I'm really, really happy. You can attend our CR ones as well. We'll pin it somewhere here. Okay. So if the passage says correlated with and option says encourages, that's a different thing. Correlated with leads to, very different. One definition considers versus defining. Something as simple as that could be the difference between your V82 and the V85, right? Everything you have to be precise. Honestly, everywhere on the GMAT, precision is the name of the game. All right. Risk would be small versus avoid the risk. Deemed to be versus are. Okay. One wrong word is one wrong answer. So one word to word to word. You're supposed to check it and you're supposed to use the prosecutor's test. All right. So yes, so we have like a bunch of you can check out questions. You can check out our free trial that'll have like a lot of information. You can take one of our mocks also if you think that you are ready. We have sectional mocks for verbal, so I think that will be really good if you wanted to. Perfect. I hope you guys enjoyed this session, and I also hope that you learned what I had promised you in the very, very beginning of the session, that you already have every skill that you need to ace RC, because when I simplified it, that time you could answer everything. You already know what it is. Okay. All you need to do is just simplify, 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 and you will be there. Okay. I hope you guys had a good session. Definitely do more practice. And yes, have a great, oh wait, weekend's far away. Have a great week, guys. Goodbye. See you. Good night. Good morning, wherever you guys are from.